Geto is about to release or has released, depending on when you're watching this video. And some of you guys might have gotten lucky if you did pull on him and pulled him within the tickets, you know, or maybe you were just crazy and went to pity for him. I don't know. But I wanted to do this character guide for you so that hopefully you can maximize his potential in the game. So first off, I want to start by talking about his skill set and what he can do. And then we'll go over which of these skills you want to upgrade first, what recollections you want to equip to him, what you need to farm out in order to get him, and all that other good stuff. So starting with his characteristic, at the start of each turn, recovers own cursed energy by 20. That is actually essential to this character and what makes him potentially really good in the right circumstance. Okay, so this character is a character that can be really good or really bad depending on how you use him. So his skill 1 is special grade curse tool Playful Cloud. At level 1, it deals 120.1% melee taijutsu damage to the selected enemy. If I could say that word correctly, I always stumble over it. However, the higher his own cursed energy is, the greater the critical hit rate boost. That is actually really good and not to be underestimated. You need to keep his cursed energy high, and notice the skill does not require any cursed energy, so you'll get a bigger critical hit rate the longer you use this skill, essentially, without using your other skills. At level 10, it goes up to 180.4% melee taijutsu damage. The skill 2 is a really good buff/debuff skill that can help your team. So it's called Curse Spirit Manipulation, deals 181.5% range jujutsu damage to the selected enemy for 3 hits, so it's a multi-hit attack. If own cursed energy is 30 or above, decreases the selected enemy's taijutsu damage by 25% for 3 turns, meaning that's going to help your team survive. That's nice. I don't really love abilities that do this, but this second part is the part that makes it really good in my opinion. If own cursed energy is 40 or above, increases the selected enemy's jujutsu damage received by 25% for 3 turns, and if you level it up to level 10, by 33%. Increasing the amount of jujutsu damage received is insanely good when you consider that Geto is a blue type character, and if you needed to run a blue type team, because later in the game when more story mode missions come out, it requires almost like mono teams for certain missions. If you need to run a blue type team, you need a blue type debuffer or buffer. Geto's really good for this, running it with Gojo, okay? Because that 25% or 33% at level 10 increased jujutsu damage allows Gojo to nuke even harder. So this is actually really good and not to be underestimated. And then his skill 3, Curse Spirit Manipulation, deals 70% ranged jujutsu damage to all enemies, so an AoE, and then the higher his own cursed energy, the greater the damage boost, which is really good, and at level 10 it's 120.4%. Why is this skill so good? It's really good because of his auto skill. So I'm going to skip the ultimate for now, go down to the auto skill really quickly. His auto skill is called Absorption. When defeating an enemy, recovers own cursed energy by 10. So if he's using a wide-ranged AoE that does more damage based on the more cursed energy he has, and he ends up killing like 3 enemies in a multi-enemy wave, right? Then he's going to get a bigger damage boost, and he's also going to get cursed energy back for each enemy. So he'll get, like, if he kills 3 enemies, he'll get 30 cursed energy back, meaning when you go into the boss fight, right after you kill like 3 minions on like a formidable foe battle, for example, then you go into the boss fight and you have a bunch of cursed energy, and that's going to allow you to nuke with your ultimate. So the ultimate, Curse Spirit Manipulation Maximum Uzumaki, deals 200% ranged jujutsu damage to all enemies, another AoE skill. That doesn't sound like a ton of damage, and it doesn't go up by a lot when you get it to level 10, right? That's actually a really low percentage when you compare it to like Gojo's 2000%. That's how much having your cursed energy up makes a difference. So that's why this character is a character that can be really good or really bad, because you have to play him correctly, right? So the higher your own cursed energy is, the greater the damage boost. Reduces own cursed energy to 0 when you use the ultimate skill. But this is really like a unique character because, like I said, he's got wave clear right here. He's got the ability to boost allies right here, and then he's got the ability to nuke here if you use him correctly. And it all relies on him keeping his cursed energy up. And notice his skills do consume 25 cursed energy and 30 to use. So if you do use this skill right here, you want to make sure you're using it when you're like guaranteed to kill all 3 of the enemies if you got 3 enemies. That way you regain or regen what you used, okay? So based on that, let me show you guys the skill priority for this character. This diagram was not made by me. It was made in the community Discord. Shout out to them for making this. I always love using these guides right here because of the way they're formatted. They make them look really, really nice. Now, I will tell you guys what I agree with and don't agree with. I do like the skill 2 a lot, but I still think personally the ultimate should be your #1 investment. So I would switch these two, but other than that, they have nailed this. Okay, so ultimate I would say is your #1 investment. #2 investment is your skill 2. Then your skill 1 is your #3 investment. And last but not least, your skill 3 should be your very last investment if you put investment into this at all, because this one does require so much cursed energy. You have to be wiping the enemies when you use it. It's going to be the one you use the least, thus why you invest in it the least. Okay, so keep that in mind. Skill 1 you're going to be using quite a bit to build up your crit rate and to allow your cursed energy to regen. Skill 2 is really good because of the buffing that it can do, and it allows Gojo to kind of pop off, because typically you're going to be running this character with either Gojo or Yuta in my opinion, and so just increasing Jujutsu damage with Geto allows both Gojo and Yuta to pop off because they both have pretty like insane Jujutsu damage overall. So you're mainly really going to be using this character as like a buffer character, but it's a buffer character who can do a decent amount of damage. He's similar to kind of like Yellow Megami, but just not quite as good in my opinion. And also you have to keep in mind, as far as attackers go, when it comes to blue attackers, like if we have to run a mono team, these are the blue attackers we have available to us, even now on JP. It's not that great. So Nishimiya is a really good supporter, and she's like top of the tier list, but she's not an attacker. He's booty cheeks. Like, there's just not, like, some of these characters are okay, like Nanami I'll give you, but realistically, the blue category for attack type characters is not all that hot. So I think actually Geto, besides Gojo, is one of the better attackers. Even Jogo here, who's a free-to-play SSR, like he's okay, but he's not that great, and we all know this Megami is not great at all. So in terms of blue options, Geto is actually halfway decent. Just had to point that out for anyone that thinks like Geto is not good. Like he's not the greatest, he's also not the worst. He's a very decent character and a decent choice. So if you got lucky enough to have him either off the tickets or you summon for him, I would be actually genuinely very happy with getting him. Now going back to the build guide, these are the materials you're going to want to farm mainly. The Gilded Ornament and the Decorative Ornament are going to be the main ones you need. Now moving on to recollections or memories, whatever you want to call them. I want to go over every single one of these and why they are important to run on Geto, and I'll tell you which one I think is the most important, which is probably You Are Late, because for him specifically, it's actually really good. Or free-to-play options, I actually like Cursed Nature better than I like Pride, and I'll show you guys why. So starting with non-standard, we all know what this memory is, so I just want to get out of the way quickly, but basically this is going to be really good on Geto because it increases his overall damage when he does his ultimate, right? When ultimate skill is activated, it increases his own Jujutsu damage by 80% for 1 turn, 1 time, and then also if you limit break it once at the start of each wave, fill his own ultimate skill gauge by 200. I think this particular recollection is better used on whatever other attacker you're probably going to be running with Geto, whether that be Yuta or Gojo. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this as like my #1 option for Geto, but if you maybe Geto's your best character, you could absolutely run this on him. Another recollection that is coming out on his banner, the Strongest Duo, is a very good recollection, but I see this recollection being used more for other characters once again. When ultimate skill is activated, it increases own Jujutsu damage by 60% for 2 turns. Once again, that could be really good for Geto. And then at the start of the battle, increases own ultimate skill gauge charge rate by 20% for 3 turns. Like, that's great, but that's not what this character thrives off of. What this character thrives off of is cursed energy. So getting cursed energy back is actually, in my opinion, more important on this character than getting ultimate gauge back. So the next recollection that is recommended is a Magnificent Stride Forward. This one, when command skill or ultimate skill is activated, increases own Jujutsu damage by 60% for 2 turns. This is nice because this allows you to use it on a command skill if you wanted on Geto. That one actually, I think this one's maybe a little bit more useful than the other two because you want Geto to be your support but also do damage. And then if you limit break it to level 1, at the start of the battle, recovers own cursed energy by 10 as well. So I think this one in particular, this recollection, is a very, very good one to run on him if you have it. And additionally, we have Your Late. Your Late is the last of the gotcha summonable recollections. So when command skill or ultimate skill is activated, increases own Jujutsu damage by 40% for 1 turn, and then the key recovers own cursed energy by 10 with a 6 turn cooldown. I think that's pretty decent. The Jujutsu damage isn't quite as good as the previous Recollection, so keep that in mind. And then if you limit break it to level 1, at the start of battle, increases own Jujutsu damage by 15%. So really you're getting 55%, and then if you limit break it to level 3, you're getting that full 60% plus cursed energy. So honestly, your late, this Recollection right here and this Recollection at Magnificent Stride Forward are pretty much like the same Recollection. They do very similar things. I feel like your late, you just have to limit break a little bit further to actually make it as useful. So technically, I might say this is the best Recollection to put on Geto. Now, as for the free-to-play Recollections, most people know what Pride does, but in case you don't, we are in the pre-adjustment right now on global. When command skill or ultimate skill is activated, increases own Jujutsu damage by 55% 2 times, and then at limit break level 1, at the start of a turn, if HP is 50% or below, increases own damage dealt by an additional 30% for 3 times, and then if you limit break it to level 3, it becomes 60% from 55%. So it's a really good just overall damage Recollection if you need extra damage for Geto. Once again, I would probably be using this on my other damage character though, rather than on Geto, unless you have both Pride and non-standard, right? If you have both of these, then sure, pick and choose. Put one of them on Geto, put one of them on your other attacker, and you're set for damage, right? But not everybody's going to have that necessarily, because not everybody has non-standard, so just keep that in mind. And last but not least, the truly free-to-play option, and it's actually not bad, is Cursed Nature, which is an SR Recollection that's surprisingly good on this character. So when command skill or ultimate skill is activated, increases own Jujutsu damage by 60% for 1 turn with a 7-turn cooldown. But that's on par, the damage increase, with the SSRs really, for the most part. And then when you limit break it to level 1, when defeating an enemy, restores own cursed energy by 10. So this one's good, but not as good as the others, because the others just give you the energy. This one you actually have to defeat an enemy to get the extra cursed energy. But honestly, I don't think it's too bad. I almost prefer this over some of the SSR Recollections I showed you. So in terms of Recollections, I really like this one, and I think this one's really good, and I think this one's really good. The other ones, Pride is decent, the Strongest duo is decent on him, and non-standard's decent, but those other ones I think are just better on this particular character. There's no argument that non-standard is the best Recollection in the game, right? But just for this character, I don't think it's necessarily the best one to run. It's an okay option if you need it though. Now moving on to the breakdown and the teams. So we're going to start with the breakdown on the right hand side, and then I'm going to go over the teams because I agree and disagree with the teams in a way. So breakdown, he's both an attacker and a debuffer, and buffer, technically you could say, which can fit in team comps focus on Jujutsu, like team comps with Yuta and or Gojo. Potential to deal high damage with his ultimate, which scales with the more cursed energy he can consume. Apply 2 debuffs, lower enemy taijutsu attack, and increase jujutsu damage taken with the skill. Increase cursed energy regen every turn, and when defeating mobs with his characteristic and passive. Works well in stages with waves before bosses, so he can stack up his cursed energy like I was saying. Try to pair him with a character or memory that allows him to regen cursed energy. It's interesting that they say this right here. I agree with that, I do. But I'll explain why that's interesting here in a second. And then using him on auto mode will limit his full potential substantially. I agree. That's one of the biggest problems with this character, is that he's not going to be as good on auto mode, at least right now on global. He'll become a little bit better when auto mode gets fixed. But who knows when that's going to happen. Hopefully we'll have answers here soon. But going back to this point here, try to pair him with a character or a memory that allows him to regen cursed energy. So as we just talked about, there's Recollections that give him cursed energy back, which is nice, and you want to run those on him. But looking at these teams, neither of these teams that are suggested has a character that gives back cursed energy. There is one very specific character that comes to mind that you should be running here, and that is the Rare Kaito. Rare Kaito is really good for giving back cursed energy, and he's almost like a must-have on a team with Geto, in my opinion. So in my opinion, the #1 team to run with this character right here is a team consisting of Yaga, Geto, and Gojo or Yuta, either one interchangeable, and then you need Kaito as your 4th. Kaito is like a battery. He will give cursed energy to your team, specifically to Geto, allowing him to use his skills more often and stay above that cursed energy threshold that you want him to stay above in order to allow him to be more useful. So it's kind of crazy to me that, Kaito wasn't really suggested here. I can see where the thought process is, that we have buffs with Yaga, we have buffs with Megami and whatnot, but I really truly do believe that we should switch out Megami right here for the rare Geto. I know that sounds weird to switch out such a good SSR for a rare character, but trust me, that is probably the way to go. Not to say that these teams are bad, these teams are definitely good options, but I would say even more free-to-play friendly is putting the rare Geto in there, so I think that works out a little bit better. But here's one team recommendation you could run. This one would honestly still be decent damage if you're just planning to use Geto as a, buffer slash debuffer to buff his damage and then debuff their damage, the enemy's damage, right? He could be used for that purpose, but he won't do as much damage in this team setup, I feel like, as if you had Geto on the team. But also, when you don't have Geto on the team, you're trading out like his damage for having Megami on the team, which gives you more damage because Megami has damage. So it kind of balances out, really. But I just like having Geto on the team. Anyways, I digress. Moving on, the manual Jujutsu on top team. So another team here, just pretty much the same thing, except for we've switched out Megami for Nobara. And once again, this team, I would switch out for Geto, but it's still a decent team if you have these characters. And I really, really like the idea, once again, of using Yuta if you have him, as opposed to Gojo, because that's going to allow you to take on longer form content without having to worry about your character disappearing. The only time I really actually would choose Gojo over Yuta with Geto is if we needed like an all blue team for a specific form of content in the game that will eventually come to the game, but that's the only time I would really choose him. In general, that is how I would build the character and invest in the character. Hopefully this helps you guys out, and if you did enjoy the video, please consider going down there, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, and thank you guys so much for watching and supporting the channel. Peace.